Good day and welcome to Richmond Honan Medical 9 opportunity. Tonight I'm quite excited to share with you this new project from a new partner, another new partner. I think Medical 8 was also a new partner, so we are quite excited to share this opportunity with you, our listeners and potential investors into this opportunity. So just to get the formalities out of the way, I just want to remind you that what I'm sharing tonight is not in any way advice that I'm giving. I'm just sharing you the opportunity, and if this is something that you would like to participate in, please make sure that you contact a financial advisor and that they make sure that that you fully understand the risk that is involved in investing in real estate investment. That's all that this disclaimer is just saying. So please familiarize yourself with our disclaimer. It is also you can also find it on our brochure when you look to further details into this investment. So my name is Billy Olofse, and I'm the head of due diligence and risk management at Wealth Migrate. Just a quick numbers relating to Wealth Migrate. So we are now over 8,000 members that is registered on our platform out of 101 countries, with about 41 of these countries already investing into our products. And if you are following us, you probably would have noticed now that our average transaction rate has actually decreased to 46,000 now, which means that our goal is to really reach 1 billion people that can invest like a high net worth investor did in the past into these opportunities globally. So for me, that is awesome news to just see this ticker going down. So just for your interest sake, if you haven't joined us for Medical 8, then the transaction rate was actually 52,000. So it's actually slowly getting down, which means that we are reaching our goal to empower people to invest like the 1% of the world. So as you can see already, we've invested 63 million in equity for our investors. That's across a number of opportunities that we've already launched since 2014. Now, for you that might not know, Medical 1, which was our first commercial medical product, is actually 3 years old on the 20th of August. So time flies when you're having fun, and it's awesome to see how our portfolio grew. And in saying that, we've actually been able to pay out 3.3 million for our investors during this period of time since we started investing in commercial space. So I'm going to turn up to our track record, and please excuse me, I'm just going to take my picture out of the way so that you can focus on what I'm sharing. And yeah, so please excuse me. I think the material is more important than how I look, but at least you can see I'm not a computer. You know, we are in a disruptive age where times are changing, so I'm a human being sharing this information with you tonight. All right, so this is Medical 1 that I just explained to you. This is just our track record. I'm quickly going to run through for those of you who might be new to Wealth Migrate. As you can see, in our second quarter, we've actually paid an annualized dividend of 9.5%. So usually our dividends are paid quarterly, and currently our medical portfolio is actually achieving and performing as we projected it would, and that's why we like the medical industry so much, is that they are consistent, and the tenants are usually quite well behaved and pay on time. So as you can see, Medical 2 was over 10%, Medical 3 was just above 8%, Medical 5 is also 8%. That was closed last year in July. It's also a 2-building office block. Then in this year, we've actually closed Medical 7, which was our first Texas opportunity, and its first quarter dividend was 8% as we projected it would be. We are actually what I just wanted to add on this particular opportunity is that there's a phase 2 that's coming. As you can see, there is 42,000 of the 62,000 square foot block of units are actually owned by us, and we are in negotiations with the other 2 owners to get the rest of the portfolio, or let's call it suites, to ensure that we actually own the full medical office complex. And hopefully in the next month, I will be sharing you with that opportunity. So if you maybe looked at Medical 7 previously and you missed out on the first round, please look out for this opportunity coming soon. So right, what I'm talking of tonight is this beautiful building. It's in Atlanta, Georgia, United States of America, and it's from the group called Richmond, Honan. So if you are looking for the opportunity on our platform, it is RH Medical 9, and the RH just stands for the partner. Is to ensure that you as a investor get to know the partners that we work on the ground with, get to understand who they are and how they're performing, and we believe that social proofing is the name of the game, and that in time that you as an investor are actually going to rate these partners by participating in their opportunities that they make available. So why do we choose medical real estate? I wanted to just quickly run through it. Some of you already know this, so please excuse me. But the reason for it is it's one of the asset classes that is recession-proof or resistant, rather. The reason for it is because doctors tend to be good tenants, and they have got high tenant installation costs. There's a lot of sensitive technology that goes into most of these spaces, and they're also patient geographic orientation, so most of the time you'll find that in a particular area, a practitioner will actually have a number of patients that they actually have built up over a period of time, and that's also what we like. What is also great about it is the fact that most of these doctors work together, so you'll need a physician to actually write you a prescription, or a what is the word I'm looking for now, to allow you to go to a specialist in some instances. And that's why what we also look for in this particular transaction, you'll see it, is that it's close to other medical facilities. Usually we're looking for a hospital, and as time is progressing now, the hospitals are growing because of the population growth out of space, and therefore you start seeing these pockets around hospitals forming with medical offices, and that's why it's driven by the demand of the demographics that people, the population growth is really affecting it. When we look at the asset classes, we've seen now CBRE, which is one of the providers that we use to get our data from. They actually mentioned that there's a lot of foreign dollars that actually goes into these investment opportunities because of the fact that it's quite safe, because you know that the tenants are long-term in these properties, purely from the fact that it costs so much to move their equipment around, and then there's a high probability that that equipment actually can damage. So if we look at a bit more detail into the market, this is now specifically to the US market, because this opportunity is in the US. I've not really discounted other markets. Purely what you will see is that in the UK, for instance, the market is not driven by a private medical insurance as what we have in places like South Africa, and in some instances in Australia as well. There's also a market where there's a portion that is not just covered by government, but there's also a market for the private sector. And that's why what the whole debate in the US around Obamacare, or the Affordable Act, is relating to these costs of medical insurance, because the state has got some sort of not incentives, but support that they do give, and that's the reason behind Obamacare, and that's why there's a lot of talk around it. So we're really following it quite hard, because there's a lot of questions: is what is the effect going to be if they actually repeal this act? Now, the fact of the matter is, a lot of the people that we talk to is that it is actually quite difficult to actually roll this back. So there is again a voting taking place. I think it's probably the 4th time that they are taking it to the GOP to vote on this, and so we'll see that it's still getting not the support that they're looking for. They are still a couple of senators voters short, and so my personal view is, if we look at some of the commentary, the new downsized act that they want to try and push through, it is actually has an impact on some of the lower income population, and the change that they actually want to cause, to my view, is actually a good thing, because currently the fact of the matter is that this Affordable Act is actually costing the state quite substantially more, and to actually reach the people and serve the people rightly, you'll note that there's a lot of sharp rises because of this, and the new act that they want to roll out now, or try to get through next week, is actually going to see that the states will have to sort of take responsibility for themselves, and it's not going to come from the national budget, which from my view is great, because then it means that the money can actually be spent probably more on infrastructure that will actually create more jobs, that will actually equip more people to actually afford medical health care. So that's just my my take on it. But let's see what happens. It's quite interesting. I'm hopeful, and I hope that they can actually get it through, because that will be something that Mr. Trump actually finally gets under his belt, and hopefully that will give him momentum for the tax incentives that he also planned for the economy. So that's I just drifted off on Obamacare, because I know for a fact that it's going to a vote again next week, and I wanted just to address that you know that we are looking at it, and from our point of view, it's not going to really affect the market that much, as there's 326 million people in the US, and 84% of them actually have got some sort of medical care or medical aid. Now, the market is purely driven, as you can see by these figures, through the 65 plus population, and statistically over the next couple of years, that portion is going to make out roughly 23% of the entire population. So for the next couple of years, there's definitely a lot of momentum going. Now, because of the whole Affordable Act and medical aid being so expensive, there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions that we are actually seeing taking place to actually make it more affordable for the health insurance companies. The other thing that they're also trying to do to lower the cost is actually to move into outpatient facilities, just because, like I mentioned earlier, that the hospitals are getting far bigger, and some of the particular practices is actually taking up a lot more space, because they have to expand on it, and then they push out some of the physicians and urgent care facilities closer to where the market is, and that's the type of properties that we also like to pick up, and you'll see it in some of our properties that we've already bought, that they're either on campus or off campus, as it's called, and we're still seeing a lot of compression on these cap rates. Now, a cap rate is the capitalization rate, so meaning that it's driven by all the different transactions that took place over a couple of months, and that sort of is the difference between what the net operating income and the investment amount would be. So it means that if you bought the place for 10 million, the net operating income of 600,000 gives you a 6% yield. So usually what you will find is, because of the the fact that there's a lot of activity in this market, it causes the prices to increase. So your net in operating income will actually then decrease in relation to that, and that's why we're talking about a cap rate compression when the cap rate goes down. So it's in this where you usually say, well, I'm going to get 8%, I want 8% on my property, but if you actually bought this by cash, you're only going to get 5% because of the activity that takes place. And that's just something about the cap rates to understand. That's why you'll find that we usually add debt to these investments to ensure that we can get a higher yield on the investment. Otherwise, if you would have put it into a cash, your yield would actually be effectively lower. All right, so that's just something on the capitalization rate and something that is important for us to track. I just want to invite you, listeners, as well, to please feel free to answer. I'll answer any questions you've got. So please feel free to pop a question in the box, and I'll as I progress, if I see it, I'll answer it. All right. So I've changed it up a bit tonight. I first wanted to introduce Richmond Honan. I have met them July this year on my trip to the US, and I must say it was quite a great experience to meet these guys. And I want to invite you to actually come October, register for the event in October the 3rd and the 5th. The 3rd will be in Cape Town and the 5th is in Johannesburg, because they're actually coming to South Africa, and I'm quite excited, and I hope that you can make the time to actually meet these guys. They are really, I don't know. They've got an awesome track record. They've got over 42 years of experience in the integrated real estate development. So what it means is that they do development, constructing, but they also hold these assets. They've actually developed and managed over 5 million square feet of healthcare facilities in the past 40 years. They've got a track record of over 30 years of their occupancy being more than 96% on average. That is phenomenal if you take into consideration the amount of buildings that they've got. They've actually won 9 Building Owners Managers Awards, 7 Outstanding Building of the Year Awards, and the Modern Healthcare magazine recognized the Richmond Honan Group of companies among the top 10 medical office providers in the United States. Now, it's for me, meeting these people is also a privilege, because they're really passionate people and they love what they're doing. So I want to invite you to meet them, and that's why they tick all the boxes for us. They're a niche market player. They've got relationships with over 2,000 physician groups that they've actually managed to put in their buildings. And one of the newest buildings that we hope to bring to you as an opportunity quite soon, they've actually built the building, and whilst they were finishing the building, the demand was so high for the property or the location, that they are actually in the process of building additional building on that same piece of land. So the track record is really a very stellar performance, and they've actually got a pipeline of $1 billion that they are working on, and that we are privileged to actually be part of. And this opportunity is not a big opportunity that they are giving us, but it's the start of something awesome. Now, we have got synergy with this group, because they also have the same heart as Wealth Migrate, where we want to empower 1 billion people, and therefore they, in the US, and the people that they are dealing with are high net worth clients, meaning they are usually accredited clients according to their regulatory environment. And for that reason, that particular the investors usually invest or has to invest above $100,000, and their heart is like us as Wealth Migrate to actually empower more people to invest into these awesome opportunities that they are actually bringing to the market. And therefore they have partnered up with us as sort of a pilot project, this project, and that's why it's a bit different than what you normally would have seen from Wealth Migrate. I'll be running through that now for you. But first, the more important thing is why Georgia? I think for us, and those of you that might have also only recently joined Wealth Migrate or following Wealth Migrate, my previous experience and what I've actually been able to share with you with potential investors is actually to our opportunities that we've had in Texas. So tonight I'm talking about Georgia. What is awesome about them? Why we're looking at Georgia? It's because it's a landlord-friendly state. So for us, it's important that the landlord has got rights, and that if the tenant doesn't pay, we can kick him out, and that's very important, you know. So although there's a right for the tenant as well as the landlord, in some instances there's more rights to a tenant than the landlord, you know, and that makes it difficult if you're on the investment side of things, because if the tenant is not paying, you can't kick him out. The other thing that is different from Georgia than Texas is the certificate of need. Now, a certificate of need is actually a protection for a healthcare facility, because you have to actually apply for that facility where you want to place it, which means that all other medical practices and hospitals have actually got a say in if you are welcome there or not, and if there's really a need for another medical facility. So that's also additional protection for you as an investor. If you invest into a particular building in Georgia, it means that property, the competition is actually so fierce. No, let me rephrase. It means actually the competition is not there, because even if there isn't a new medical practitioner or facility coming online, they actually that means that they have to have met the need for that particular environment. So it's great for everyone. So it's also the pro-business #2 top state for business in the US, rated by Forbes. It's the #1 producer of peaches and pecans and peanuts. I think it's actually in the world, with the 8th largest population in the US of 10.4 million. It's growing at the 10th fastest pace of 1.19% in the past year. The GDP of the state is around 461 billion. And if you take it into context, if I'm just spitting out numbers, it might mean nothing to you. But if you put it in context, if you consider all the biggest countries out there, if this state of Georgia was a country, it would have been the 25th biggest country on GDP, gross domestic product, in the world. So that's why we like Georgia. It's because it's a business-friendly state. And if we delve now deeper into Atlanta, where the property is located, then you'll see that Atlanta is the capital of Georgia. Just an interesting fact is that Dr. John S. Pepperton was a pharmacist in 1886 who lived in Atlanta, that designed a beverage that we now know as Coca-Cola. Some interesting or random useless facts. But what is important when we look at it, not that Coca-Cola's head office is only there, but is it a gateway city, which Atlanta is. The Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport is the busiest in the world, and 100 million people actually flew through Atlanta or to Atlanta, with a 650 million, 600,000 tons that cargo passed through this airport. And the thing of the gateway city is that 80% of this US consumer is actually within 2 hours from Atlanta. So that's what we like, and because it means that people are going into this this town, and that's why it's growing. That's where the population has been growing positively for the past 3 years at a pace of 1.6 per annum. And the state's policy on business, and that's why it's rated so high. Washington State, which is to the north side, northwest side of the U.S., is the #1 state. But this also is the reason why 15 of Fortune 500 companies' head offices are in Atlanta, with 11 Fortune 1000, and the Inc. 5000, 220 fastest growing businesses are actually located in Atlanta. There's also 160,000 businesses that is actually luring people into Atlanta, and that's why the population is also ticking on people wanting to be there. Now, the other important thing for us, if we look into a medical sort of aspect to it, Atlanta is rated as the #3 metro in projected population growth. That's going to stimulate and support the healthcare industry, and it's also one of our main criteria when we look at a town. As you can see, UPS, Delta, which is the biggest airline in the world, is also found in Atlanta, with Home Depot as well. So when we look closer into the neighborhood of where the property is located, it is actually the largest office sub-market, which has got most of the global brands located in the particular area, close to where the property is located. So you'll see UPS, Intercontinental Hotel Groups, Cox Enterprises, Rubbermaid, State Farm Insurance, and Arby's, just to name a few, is actually located in the Sandy Springs area. The property is also located, as you can see there, to the northern circle, which is also the more affluent part of Atlanta. It's also the suburb to the eastern side of the property, which is called Perimeter, is also one of the oldest, how would I say it, old money can be found there. So it's a well-established neighborhood, and because of that, is also a changing neighborhood, which is now attracting the young and old residents, with millennials moving into the area. So young and old, because of the vibrant area and because of the renewing, and there's a lot of workers that actually comes into that, let me rephrase, it is easier accessible by using the I-285 that actually runs through or around, that's the circle around Atlanta, and then the 400 that runs from the north to the south of Atlanta Metro. So as you can see, also the average homes are $430,000, and the average income is actually above what the national average is. All right. The other important thing is to note is that, like I mentioned earlier, what is important is the closeness of a hospital to where the health facility is, the medical center is. It is on what they call the full hill, where 3 hospital complexes is situated. So you get your Children's Medical Center, as well as St. Joseph's Hospital, Emory Healthcare, and Northside Hospital. That is actually 1.2 miles from the property. So it's literally across the highway. You'll find these hospitals in close proximity. Interesting fact, the Northside Hospital, Lee Richmond, his dad was actually, or granddad, is actually the man that actually started the Northside Hospital group. So that's also one of the reasons why I think the reason why Lee actually went into the medical space is because of that need that he recognized in building hospitals or medical facilities. So let's look at the numbers. As I said, it's located in Sandy Springs. This is definitely one of our biggest assets that we are getting involved with or investing with. It is what is it, 110,000 square feet. Now, what I need to explain here is that the deal value in this particular case, when I talk about the deal value, it was bought in 2015 and renovated in 2016 to the value of 40 million. And this means that the asset by now is actually completely stabilized. It's got a 98.5% occupancy. And as you can see, is that the equity available is only 3.8 million. Now, the original equity amount was around 12.2 million that was invested originally into the property. And because of this relationship that we are building now with the Richmond Honan group, is that they wanted to really reach other people as well. So in conjunction with them, we are given this 3.8 million or 3.5 million rather to actually not just give the money back to Richmond Honan to reinvest into further developments, but also allow their investors to come in at a lower rate of investment requirement than what they had previously. So that's the reason why it's so low. And in saying this, is that's also the reason why it's 3 years with an option of 1+1. Now let me just explain that a bit better. So because the property was bought in 2015, there was a development loan taken out. They negotiated a agreement for around 5 years, and for that reason, in 3 years' time, that loan will actually come available to be able to refinance that. And if, for instance, the market conditions is not of such a suitable nature for Richmond Honan, they asked just to have the option actually to extend this opportunity at the same principles as is set out now, for a year or another year if required. Now the agreement is that within 3 to 6 months before the expiration of 3 years from now, they will give us notice just to indicate that they are going to refinance, and then we can we as Wealth Migrate and the investors from Wealth Migrate can actually exit this transaction and roll into something else of the group. And yeah, so that's sort of the difference here. It's not a normal deal where we actually come into the deal, the property is bought for a particular time, and then they sell the property completely out. What they do, and that's also one of the things that I missed mentioning earlier, is that they've actually like to hold their assets quite long term. So they actually had a property that they built in 1985, and they only sold it in 2012. So what they like to do is to, because of the yields, like I mentioned earlier, keeps on compressing, they refinance the property so that they can actually pay back the investors' investment. So the usual case in point is that the investor will get their money back, but they will still be in the deal because they're still a shareholder, and effectively then staying on board if they wanted to till 10 years from now or whenever. So that is why we like this group. And although this first investment is not going to be like that, the next investments we are negotiating with them to actually be on that same terms. So if you're looking for a long-term investment, follow this group. We are definitely going to bring some more opportunities from them where you will have that opportunity to stay much longer. But what we like about this deal is sort of a first dance now with this partner. We've got 3 years, which is going to give a return of 9% for this 3 years, and then a 20% return on the 3.5 million. So that's roughly 700,000, and that's before costs. So Wealth Migrate's Wealth Migrate's going to have an investment management fee that will be deducted off the 9%, and then they obviously also our structuring cost keep the to make it easier for yourself, because if you invest through our platform, then you don't have to register in additional entities. You can literally just go on the platform, fill in your forms, do your KYC, click the amount that you want to invest, and voila. Whilst if you add a structure, and that's what we are making easier for you as an investor, there's going to be costs and time involved, and that's something that we cover for you, and obviously that's being deducted off the original 9% return. There's obviously going to be I wouldn't say it's a fixed 9%, so it's not going to, unfortunately, like our other investments, there's not going to be a capital gain more than the 20%. It's predetermined, pre-negotiated. So this is probably the simplest investment that we're going to do. The other factor that we also are mitigating the risk in this transaction is that because Richmond Honan has got such a rich history, they don't necessarily need the cash. Well, I say necessarily, they don't need Wealth Migrate. They want to participate, they want to change the world with us. So from that perspective, to actually make the deal even sweeter for us and to mitigate our risk even further, or their risk, they are going to set the 9% for the next 3 years into what we call a escrow account, which is much like a trust account that you, if you're South African, would understand. So it's going to be at the attorney's office, and each quarter there's going to be a debit order that runs to our account that's going to be paid. So that's how simple it is. It's not going to be complicated by issues where if the tenant doesn't pay, then you're not going to have a issue. The only difference between the 9 and 8%, where we're saying on average 8%, if inflation is increasing through the 3-year period, and our costs might differ from what we originally anticipated, that's the only reason why there could be a difference between the 9% and the 8%. But otherwise, the deal is going to give you 9% gross with a 20% gain on the end. Wealth Migrate's cost, just so you know, we're going to split the capital gain with you 80-20. So your effective return is 16%. And if we then quantify that into an internal rate of return, which as you know is the average rate of the time of money. So what it means is that your effective return is 12.33%, but your actual return is going to be 8% during the course of the years, with an additional bump of 16% at the end, and that's how we get to the 12.33%. So yeah, so that's the deal in a nutshell. What is also important to note is that there's going to be a slight difference between if you're an investor that's got a limited liability company offshore. We're not going to be deducting or making provision for your tax, and that's why if you look at our brochure, you'll find that we've upgraded it now to reflect limited liability company returns versus the secure site investor returns. The main difference is that because the money is moving offshore, we have to account for the taxes that is liable in the US before paying it out to our offshore structure that is the platform. All right, so I think that is the numbers. If we go to the property is called the Greenridge Medical Center. Let me just take a sip of water. It seems I'm tying my tongue tonight. So as you can see, it's a spectacular building. It is big. It's actually 5 floors in total. As you can see from the picture on the right left corner, bottom, that's the 400 driving past. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what time of day that is, but that's the usual amount of traffic that flows past that building. What is quite lovely for me that I enjoy in Atlanta is all that greenage. You can see all the trees, which makes the building not that visible, but it's quite close to it. So your marketing team is not necessarily happy because you don't have the visibility that you might have in other countries or other towns or states. But I like the greenery around it. Just for further noting is that that piece of property to the back of the building is actually already being is already zoned and is already being earmarked for additional changes and increases to take place. Sorry, another building to be added to this property and site. So I'm quite excited to see that happening soon. This is just some interior in the inside. The right corner is also sort of when you step into the building, you really grabbed by this majestic looking open space that is connecting the inside of the building. It was actually built in 1974. It's a concrete solid building. It was GM's headquarters back in the day then. It was renovated in 2008, and then now also again in 2015 further renovations have taken place when they actually bought it. Yeah, so I see Andrew, thanks for the question. Is the 16% payable after the three years, 1 + 1 years? So yeah, so it's a fixed rate. So your return is based on the 3.5 million that's being invested. So it's going to be 16% on the 3.5 million, which is roughly 560,000. So that's still going to be the same, even if they extend it. And if they extend it, the return during that period of time will also be 9%. So all of it will stay the same. It is set in stone, unfortunately, Andrew. We are as sad as you are, but like I said, we are busy with them building the relationship, and in the next couple of months, we are hoping to reveal some of the newer projects in which we will definitely have more of an upside. So I define this as a more lower risk investment that we had in the past. So because the interest is being set aside, it means that your risk is also a bit less than what you would have in some of our other projects where you have some of the risk. I'll discuss it just now. This is just to confirm that there's really solid tenants in this building, even though the investment is not reliant on these tenants. It's still important for us to note the tenants and to make sure that our criteria is met, even though it's not necessary to be discounted. So some of the main tenants are HCA, which is an established hospital group, Georgia Urology, and as you can see is that over 84% of the building has got more than 5 years on the leases, and that bodes well. Also, most of them have got options, and we've just to give some more insurance. If we talk about the refinance, the building is actually worth already 43.7 million. So we have seen an appraisal, and then we also got a recent transaction that's been shown to us that's got a 5.75% cap rate. The appraisal was done, I think, at a cap rate of 6.2 or 6.5%, if I remember correctly. So it means that the market is still hot, and this particular asset will definitely do well enough to perform when it's time to refinance it. What you're seeing to the right side, that's just what they call a binary, a closing binary. So we have actually worked through all these documentations just to make sure that everything is above board and is what they say it is. So what is the risk that is important that we look at? Like I said, tenant risk, failure to honor the lease obligations. So we've seen the lease agreements. We've got the necessary documentation to prove that they are solid and in a solid financial position. Even though, like I said already, the risk is being taken out of that for you by having the interest for the 3-year period being set aside. The other important thing, now that the Fed has actually just yesterday announced that they are definitely looking to increase the rates again this year. They've already increased it 3 times already since last year. And they're looking to increase it further, even though the inflation at this point in time is not high enough to really justify it. They are really taking precautionary measures to make sure that the economy actually come back to fruition. Saying that, the development loan has been fixed, set out in a fixed interest rate as well. So the important thing to note is also is that the property was also, its loan to value was let me just get my number here closer, roughly 68%. So it's not geared quite high, which is always also important for us. But in this scenario, like I said, there's not going to be any capital call risk that you as an investor can face because of this. All right, so just a summary on the exit strategy. So the planned holding period is 3 years. If the market conditions are unfavorable, the partner just asks for an additional extension of 1 + 1 year. And as mentioned previously, they will actually give us notice 3 to 6 months before the planned exit to indicate what their plan is, and we will inform you as investor as soon as that has happened. So just to summarize, the investment return, capital gains, and exit period has been formally negotiated, and unfortunately we will not have any wiggle room at this point in time. All right, so that is all from my side. Let me just quickly check if I might have missed something. I'm checking my notes. No, I think the only thing that I have to say is let's have a look at what questions I can answer. All right, thanks for the questions, Ian. Is the internal rate of return for Medical 9 before or after tax? Yes, Ian, the 12.33% is before tax. If I can choose between Medical 9 and another option project of say 15 or 18% internal rate of return, what are the pluses here that would make me the investment in Medical 9? Okay, yes, Peter, that's a very good question. I think, like I said, I think the important thing here to note is the fact that the risk is a tad lower in this investment. I won't say there's no risk, because there's always risk, but the investment risk is definitely much lower than what you would find with an investment that currently has got giving us 15 to 18%, because the assumptions on those investments is that the ability will be to actually have tenants in place, and that the tenants are going to pay. And at the on the other side is that the capitalization rate might also change in 5 years' time. So there's always going to be a bit more of a risk, but that is also why you are rewarded for that risk, because there's additional value add that can take place. If we take into considerations most of our other investments that we aim for, we are looking for a position where we actually can add some value by either having some portion of the vacancy that we bought in at leased up at a bit of a higher market rate, because what we are seeing is that the rental increases are still quite higher than inflation, and which means that in a couple of years' time, if you got a great tenant in that you probably replaced at a higher rate, then that can actually add some value at the end of the day. So what I would say is that to finalize, to just round that up, is that I think the risk to reward is justifiable in this scenario. All right, so I got another question. What is the reason for it being less than Medical 8? Well, Ian, the main reason is because Medical 8, your exit assumptions in 5 years from now, the capital gain is substantially more. It's double that. mainly for the reason that the medical aid has got a portion that can be leased up at a higher market rate, and that is the main difference here between medical aid and medical 9. Is that medical 9, the numbers are what the numbers is, so there's no the 9% is not going to increase, the 16 or 20% is not going to increase, whereas in medical 8 there is ability to actually move those numbers by adding additional tenants into the building, or selling it as part of a portfolio, for instance. In this scenario, because we only got 18% shareholding in this particular asset, it won't be possible for us to make it part of a portfolio sale where you can actually decrease your capitalization rate. Bruce, what do you project the internal rate of return to be after tax? Bruce, the internal rate of return after tax is 10.77%. Is the 8% return per annum also before tax? Yes, Bruce. So the 8% is before tax, but because of the structures in place, I'm not sure if you're a limited liability investor or you're going to go through the platform. In the limited liability scenario, unfortunately, I cannot speak as to what the tax implication might be, but the platform structure has been put in place that the pre-tax forecast would be still the 8%. After tax will still be 8% because of the structure that we've put in place. All right, Richard, thanks for that question. Could you explain the 3-year investment cash flows for the investment, assuming they invest 1,000? Well, Richard, that is going to be, you're going to get $80 on that 1,000 investment during the course of the 3 years per annum. So that accounts to roughly, if you add it after tax return, you're going to get your money back. Sorry, let me just check. I've got a table here. You're going to get 323. Let me just, sorry, I'm just quickly checking my numbers here. That's a great question. You're testing my maths tonight. So the cash flow gains is 925. That's 92. Okay, so and your capital gain on 1,000, that's going to be 92 additional dollars that you're going to get on your capital of $1,000. So to sum that up, your total return during the course of the investment is going to be $333 on your $1,000 investment. I hope that answers your question. Let me see if there's any more questions. Great questions tonight. I like it. Is there anything, any more questions from anyone? There we go, Francis. Is the capital gain 16% or 20%? So Francis, the capital gain is 20% before the cost. So after the cost, which is Wealth Migrate's performance fee, if you want to call it that, that's then 16%. So it's 16% that the investor will get in his pocket after the cost before tax. If there's whilst you are thinking of more questions, I just wanted to just quickly remind you that of the event in Cape Town on October the 3rd and October the 5th in Johannesburg, where you can meet Richmond Honan, so you can firsthand meet these guys that is bringing this awesome investment and actually see what they are busy with and planning, and what you can possibly also look to partake in. Like I said, they're currently busy with 2 integrated living properties, where it's divided between a medical office block, integrated living, which means aged care, and as well as a medical hotel, all rolled up into one property. And the idea is, and our hope is, that we can actually secure some investment blocks into these facilities for you as an investor. So please diarize the October 3rd and 5th. If you want some more details and want to make sure that you get registered, I think Milani, have you actually paste that link in the chat box? So please click on that link and register yourself if you wanted to actually be there. We would love to have you there. It's going to be an awesome event, and like I said, it's really great, guys. Then the other things, just look out at the end of October and beginning of November. We've got wealth movement events coming up, so look out for that as well, and please register. And then just something on the side for those that might be new and those that might be old on the webinar tonight. Go and have a look on the website. We've added some what we call tombstones for different aspects. I'm working hard. My team is working hard to secure some UK properties, UK investments. We're working on some additional Australian investments coming online. Please go visit the website and register your interest for those different projects that we're planning. You'll note that we're also looking possibly in a shopping center investment. I would love to hear from you as we might have an idea as to what investors might like. We've got criteria for specific things that we actually know of, but we really want to find opportunities that actually meet your criteria and your appetite as well. So please let everyone know to go to the site, register your interest, and we will definitely, our investment consultants will keep you informed as to when that's going to happen and what's going to take place. Let me just check. It looks like there's another question coming in. Is the 16% capital gains going to be split 80-20 between investor and wealth migrate? Yes. So the investor then gets 12.8%. No, not the 16%, Francis. The 20% is being split, so that's why it's 16%. So it's 80% of the 20%, and then yeah. So it's not the 16% that's being split. Thanks for that question. And yeah, I think I'm cautious of time, and I don't want to keep you any longer. Let's see if there's time for another quick question. Let me just give me 1 second. All right, no, I think that is it. I want to thank each and every one of you who has joined us tonight or today. I'm not sure where you are in the world or when you're watching this video or webinar. Thank you. We appreciate your time to make the effort to join us live, and look forward to meeting you and seeing you at our events. Please register again for our next webinar and look out for the new products that we are launching soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.